Hello, this is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan. Alright, we got some good stuff today. I will talk about the Olympics, and I will talk a lot about the opening week of preseason. And, it's pretty much going to take up the entire podcast. So, to start off, we're going to start off with Steph Curry. In the last two games of the Olympics was just incredible, just unconscious. Definitely the best part of Team USA in those last two games. Scored 24 in the final against France. But you all know that. What I wanted to talk about was a bit of a larger point. So we all know Steph Curry is definitely top 3. I would say top 2 point guard ever. I do think Magic is still better, but Steph Curry, top 2 at his position, probably top 12 all time, if I had to guess. For the record, not only is he the greatest shooter ever, Team USA is 29-0 when Steph plays the game. And the point I'm trying to make is, I think sometimes we get tired of the same people dominating for over a decade. And the second they stop, we forget. We're quick to say that they're done. So Steph Curry, LeBron, and KD, the 3 best players of this generation. The 3 of them have dominated since 2013, 2014. The 3 of them have been the 3 best players by far. The 3 of them were also bounced. Well, 2 of them were bounced in the first round. 1 didn't even make the playoffs. And everyone was quick to say, end of an era. LeBron, KD, Steph, gone are those days. Now we arrive at the Olympics 2 short months later, and you know who the 3 leading scorers were for Team USA? In this order: Steph Curry, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant. They were the 3 leading. Obviously, they didn't average that many points. LeBron averaged 14.2, Steph 14.8, Kevin Durant 13.8. But you're not going to average that many points when you're on a team that's stacked with young talent like AD, Embiid, Edwards, and Booker. But on a team with Edwards, Booker, AD, and Embiid, who I think all 4 of those guys people would say are top 10 in the league right now. And on Team USA, the 3 best players of the entire Olympics were the 3 old guys that you tried to say were done. So I think a lot of times, even though we would all agree that Curry is top 2 at his position, probably top 12, top 15 all time, now that his team isn't dominating the way we're used to, we want to say he, LeBron, and KD are done. I think this Olympics show that they're not. Alright, so we got our first real sense of Caleb Williams this past weekend. He had a pretty solid game. He didn't really play a full game, but in the game time he had a pretty solid showing, 102 passer rating. He had 95 yards passing, 4 for 7. The Bears won, which I guess is a plus, doesn't really matter. But, listen, Caleb Williams, you know where I stand on him. He, I think, has the most talent and promise in the class. I think a lot of times with first overall picks is they land in the wrong spot. Caleb Williams might be lucky. I do think he found the most prepared Bears team I've ever seen. Offensively speaking, they've had some good defenses in the past. But offensively, I have only ever seen Walter Payton be a legend for them. They've had a lot of great defense players. I would argue 85 Bears are the best defense of all time. But this is the most prepared they've ever been offensively for a quarterback coming in. And I think that is better than what most first overall picks come into. Like Trevor Lawrence, that Jaguars team was awful, or it didn't help that Urban Meyer was incredibly disappointing as a coach. And Baker Mayfield went to the Browns, who were a laughingstock. They kind of got turned around. Kevin Stefanski's done a great job. But a lot of these first overall picks, they're going to a team that's the first overall pick for a reason. And I mean, look at Bryce Young this past year. It's bad situation, bad turnout. But I think Caleb Williams is in a unique position where he's not going to a phenomenal team, but they did add a lot of offensive firepower, and I think we're going to see some great flashes from Caleb Williams throughout his rookie year. Now, the most interesting quarterback, in my opinion, in the draft class, Bo Nix, isn't as hyped up as Caleb Williams, but I am excited to see what he can do. I think Sean Payton, I still think he's a fantastic coach. I know people are down on him because of his days in Denver, but I still believe that team last year should not have won 7 games. They should have been like a 4 or 5 win team with that roster. And Bo Nix, he had a pretty, like Caleb Williams, had a pretty solid season debut. 125 yards. He threw a touchdown. Broncos won, but like I said, it doesn't really matter. He went 15 for 21, 102 passer rating. He was... What I saw from him was pretty much what I expected to see. Just very accurate, very smart with the ball, great decision maker. Honestly, I think that should be enough for him to win the quarterback battle over Zach Wilson. Because I feel like you only put Zach Wilson in if you don't feel like Bo Nix is ready. And I know people will say, actually, kind of contradicting myself right now, because the other day I made a point about how quarterbacks sitting a year can be very beneficial. And it can be. But a lot of the quarterbacks I pointed out, the alternative to starting them was a lot better than Zach Wilson. Like Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre. Jordan Love sat behind Aaron Rodgers. Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith, who's a very respectable quarterback. So a lot of Tom Brady sat behind Drew Bledsoe. So a lot of these guys that didn't play immediately had a somewhat respectable quarterback to sit behind. With Bo Nix, there's not really a point in sitting behind Zach Wilson. Unless, like I said, the team doesn't think Bo Nix is ready at all. But he looked very much prepared for the start of the season. He looked NFL ready, but it's only a glimpse. It's only 21 passes. So my contention is he should start week 1, but that's all up to Sean Payton. And like I said with the Packers, like when I was talking about the Jordan Love contract, the Packers are a very good organization, and they haven't been wrong on a lot of the choices they made. They've made some questionable draft picks defensively, but now that we see Jordan Love is a lot better than we thought, I don't know if I've seen them have a big miss on offense. And how many other teams have had 3 straight quarterbacks that look like... Honestly, how many teams have gone back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks? I can think off the top of my head of the Niners and the Packers. That's it. So like I was saying, I trust what the Packers do with Jordan Love. I trust what Sean Payton does with Bo Nix. Speaking of the Packers, Jordan Love got some snaps in the first preseason game, threw a touchdown. Looked really good. They won, like I said. I'm just throwing that in there as extra information. Yeah, Love he threw 2 passes, touchdown. I mean, hey, he had a perfect quarterback rating because of the 2 passes, but yeah, I mean, Jordan Love, he really took a complete 180 in the second half of that year. I really, the first 8 weeks were pretty tough to watch, but that last 9 games, like I said, statistically, the last 9 games, he was one of the best in football at the quarterback position. And I think a big thing I've mentioned how the Packers were a lot more successful last year than they were the year before with Rodgers. And, I don't think it's because Love is better than Rodgers. I think it's because it's just a better feel, The Packers are still a pretty young team. And when you have Aaron Rodgers, a 40-year-old, or I guess at that time a 38-year-old, either way, he's looking to win now because his career is coming to a close and he doesn't want to be a quarterback that had fantastic stats but just won Super Bowl. He wants to prove himself. Whereas the rest of the team, the receiving core, a lot of the guys in the defense and the secondary, mainly the receiving core because they're the ones working with Rodgers, the receiving core is young. They're looking to learn. They're not looking to... they haven't found their footing yet. They don't really care about winning. I shouldn't say that, but they're more focused on learning how to transition into the NFL. Rodgers just didn't really have time for that. On the contrary, Jordan Love is in the same age group as them. They probably have a lot more in common with him than they have in Aaron Rodgers. They're looking for the same things. It just works out a lot better with Jordan Love than it did with Rodgers. And like I said, it's not an indictment on Rodgers' ability. Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Like I said, I would put him as high as top 8 and as low as top 12. He's a fantastic quarterback, but it was clear the Packers were transitioning into a younger team, and Rodgers just had to go. It wasn't working with him. All right, we're going to talk about another quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. Had his debut, 116 passer rating, 11 for 17, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Vikings beat the Raiders, and I'm going to talk about the Raiders quarterback situation in a little bit. But yeah, J.J. McCarthy, he was better than I thought. We didn't really see a lot of him because Michigan was so dominated by defense and run game. So I saw a lot more from him than I expected. And I'm not saying he's Herbert, but it is similar. I saw a lot of mobility from him, which we didn't get a glimpse of in college. And that's kind of similar to Herbert. We didn't know Herbert can move because he never ran at Oregon because they didn't... That's just not how their offense was ran. We didn't see a lot of J.J. McCarthy in Michigan because that's not how Harbaugh ran his team. He ran it more on defense and running game. Also, there was never really a reason to be a pass-heavy offense because Michigan, oftentimes, they were leading games pretty comfortably. So we never saw McCarthy play without a lead, really. When he did, he looked pretty solid. He was very much managed at Michigan, which isn't exactly a bad thing, but he didn't need to throw 30 times, and because of that, we didn't really see a lot of him. But I would say so. Their schedule isn't very easy. I will say that they open up with the Giants. They should win that game, but then they got San Francisco, Texans, Green Bay, the Jets. The Jets. If Rodgers is healthy, their offense is tough. But either way, I don't think you want J.J. McCarthy going against the Jets defense in week 5. Sorry. And then they get a bye afterwards, but I think you want Darnold at least until the bye. And if it's not working, maybe change course. But the big thing is, once you go to J.J. McCarthy, you don't want to go back. Right? Because that's just... I feel like it's really just going to screw with the team. So once you switch over, once you get your rookie in there, you're going to want them playing the rest of the season. So I think if you're like 1-4 or 2-3 by week 5, heading into the bye, and your offense is not running smoothly, I think a switch is reasonable. If you're 3-2, 4-1, 5-0, maybe obviously a switch isn't needed. Then there's the third option where you are 2-3, 1-4. Your team is struggling, but your offense looks good. I'd keep Darnold in. So, and like I said, that's all based on what they think. As I said earlier, I think if you believe McCarthy is ready, there's not really a point in having him sit behind Darnold, but I don't think... My gut feeling is that the Broncos are more confident in Bo Nix than the Vikings are in J.J. McCarthy. And this schedule, like I said, this is tough. The Giants isn't bad, but then the Niners, they have a tough defense. The Texans have a tough defense. Packers, not so much, but they have a really good offense, so... you don't want a rookie in a shootout in his third ever NFL game. Jets have a tough defense. They get a bye. Then they got the Lions, the Rams, Colts. Bit of a break in the schedule. Jags, Titans, Bears, Cardinals. The Falcons could be a tough team. Then the Bears, Hawks. And then they get the Packers and Lions to end the year. So not a very easy schedule. They have a few breaks, but... yeah, I think at least keep Darnold until the bye, and then make a decision there. You don't want to go back and forth on quarterbacks. That's going to make the team a mess. All right, so this Brandon Ayuk saga is not over. His options appear. This is a report. The options appear to be down to the Steelers and staying with the Niners. Steelers could use him. I'm just going to make that clear. The Niners, as I've said, he'd be a nice guy to have. I don't think they necessarily need him to be a Super Bowl, to make the Super Bowl, or even win it. But I don't know. I mean, it's almost like I think he should be traded, honestly, at this point. I think he's... I know you might think this is a ridiculous point to make, but I really do think that offseason drama dampens a team's performance in the regular season or in the playoffs. I'm not going to cite the Packers again, but if Ayuk is causing the drama that Rodgers caused a few years ago, it could put a major damper on the Niners' season. So, and I'm going to make the point again that I made with Sean Payton and the Packers. I trust Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. They're both really good at their job. And they've both done a very good job at obviously building the Niners from the ground up. They were awful. It's almost like people have forgotten how awful the Niners were just like 7-8 years ago. Because Shanahan and Lynch just turn it around. So whatever they do, I trust. But my gut is telling me just ship him off. It's gonna be much easier. All right. So back to my point about LeBron, Curry, and KD reasserting their dominance. LeBron was named the Olympic MVP, and don't kid yourself, he did deserve it. He was very much the most impactful player throughout the entire Olympics. Yes, Curry had 2 very good games to close, but I think LeBron was a perfect pick for MVP. It's tough to choose for Team USA because they had so many great players having so many good performances. I think it speaks volumes to how good their roster was when you realize they had to bench Embiid, who is a hell of a scorer, and Jason Tatum, who was... I know I said Jaylen Brown deserved MVP, but Jason Tatum was more than impactful in that finals. He led the Celtics in points, rebounds, and assists. But, Team USA, they did have to survive a scare against Serbia, which that was a little random, but they got out of it, so I'm not getting too fixated. And honestly, I think all things considered, Team USA had a pretty solid performance in the Olympics. I would say the 2 events I followed most closely were basketball and track and field. So that's those were kind of the 2 events 2 sports that I have the most information on as far as where we medaled and where we didn't. But yeah. I mean, I slightly follow gymnastics on my week off, but like my main things were track and the stacked Team USA basketball team. We did get a bronze in the 10K. A nice change happened where we were actually competitive distance-wise. This time, our 4x4 mixed team got a silver. Sha'Carri Richardson and Melissa Jefferson got silver and bronze. Noah Lyles got the gold in the 100. Got COVID, was dancing on the line, and then collapsed 20 seconds later, so I don't know what that was about, but... Listen. I think it's also important to mention that Fred Curley also got a bronze. I think too much attention was on the Noah Lyles getting gold, which is obviously incredible, but I think it's important to not only address the big names, but also the new guys as well. I also don't forget about the field events. Our pole vault, Sam Kendrick got silver. Valerie Allman got gold in the discus. What else? The big upset. Best 1500 final I've ever seen in my life. Cole Hocker, Yared Nuguse coming away with the upset. Gold and bronze. Gabby Thomas got gold in the 200. Brittany Brown, bronze. Katie Moon, silver in the women's pole vault. Quincy Hall, Kenneth Rourke got silver. I mentioned Noah Lyles got bronze in 200. That was pretty much a disaster, but we rebounded. Sydney McLaughlin blew everyone out of the water in the 400 hurdles. Anna Cockrell got silver as well. Femke Bol didn't even... she wasn't even second place, and that's no disrespect to her. She's a phenomenal runner. But it really, I think, it's not an indictment on her as much as it is incredible for Sydney McLaughlin that she just blew everyone else out that badly that everyone forgot Femke Bol is one of the best to ever do it. Gold and silver for us in the 110. Gold in the 4x4 and the 4x1 for the women. And that's not it for the medals, is it? Cy Russell on the 100 hurdles. Grant Fisher. Mentioned the 4x4. Yeah. So track and field and basketball, I think, were the main highlights of the Olympics for Team USA. But pretty fantastic showing from all the athletes there. All right, so Jerry Jones talked about the CeeDee Lamb drama. Pretty much just saying you were missed. Obviously referring to the holdout. Listen, his absence is going to be have a major impact on their offense. Dak, as I've said, is a top 10 to top 12 quarterback. Guys in that tier guys in that tier are very talented, but in order to have a successful stat line and have a good offense, they need a number one receiver. The top 3, top 5 guys, I don't think they necessarily need a number one, but obviously it adds to the mix. Like Justin Herbert, I don't think he really needs a number one receiver. Mahomes, I mean, he has Kelsey, so it's kind of cheating almost, but I think he's talented enough to overcome a crappy receiver. Joe Burrow overcame a crappy offensive line, made a Super Bowl. So Dak is talented, but I don't think he's good enough to overcome the loss of CeeDee Lamb. I do think it's very important to note that when he's throwing the ball to CeeDee Lamb, Dak's passer rating is 120. When he throws the ball to any other wideout, it's 89. So there's a significant decline in efficiency from Dak when CeeDee Lamb is not the one he throws to. So, I mean, I don't know how the Cowboys are going to handle this, but I think they have to. Because without CeeDee Lamb, their offense is going to be a lot worse. And I think even if they have CeeDee Lamb, they're second in the division. So not having him is gonna definitely not going to help them. All right, so Joe Burrow had a season-ending wrist injury last year. He got a few snaps. Went 5 for 7 with 51 yards and a touchdown. Listen, you guys know where I stand on the Bengals. They have a great number one receiver, Jamar Chase. Zach Taylor is a very clever head coach. They have good protection now. I think if they were to rematch the Rams in the Super Bowl this year, and I do think the Rams are a dark horse for the Super Bowl, I think they would need the Niners to kind of get depleted in a way for them to take top of that division, but what I'm saying is, I think 2 years ago, if they had the O-line they have now, they win that Super Bowl against the Rams. So I'm going to stand on my opinion. They're very much in the Super Bowl bubble. They're very much one of the 5 teams that can win it. And, it's going to rely on Burrow staying healthy. And it's honestly scary, similar to what I said about the Jets. Except I am more confident in Burrow staying healthy than I am Rodgers. But the Bengals, I currently have winning their division, being second in the AFC and going to the Super Bowl, actually. I mentioned on my last podcast my Super Bowl pick this year is Niners against Bengals. So, we'll see how that works. I have no idea who would. I haven't decided who would win that yet, but you know what? I'll make the decision whenever this Brandon Ayuk thing is resolved, however they do it. All right, so Antonio Pierce of the Raiders is hoping to make a quarterback decision after the next preseason game. It's Gardner Minshew versus Aiden O'Connell. I think Minshew's more reliable. It's tough to say. Against the Vikings, Minshew was the main guy. He had 4 drives. O'Connell only got 1. But in the 4 drives, I think Minshew was a lot more... if you're looking at the stats, Minshew had a 112 passer rating. O'Connell had 101. I don't know. We really haven't seen anything from Aiden O'Connell that indicate that he's better than Minshew. But I have also said that Minshew is one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league. He's not really the ideal starter for you. But it might be the best the Raiders have right now. But like I said, that's one of the teams that I see 100% being last in their division. You got the Raiders, the Patriots are definitely going to be last. I think the Titans are one of those teams. Probably maybe the Seahawks. But yeah, they're one of those 4 teams that are just they're not going to compete for anything. So whatever they decide to do with their quarterback, don't tell anyone in the front office this, but it probably doesn't matter. All right, so that was the last segment for today. We're approaching about 35 minutes on this podcast, pretty solid. Good stuff today. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose Dylan. I should be in every day this week, so I look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose Dylan. Have a good day. I will see you tomorrow.